Good evening. Are
Hi.
you also in New York? And should we also expect
Hey!
to hear
Oh my
people dying in the
No,
goodness!
background?
I'm in
Finally!
Nairobi. Yes,
Irene!
I'm in Nairobi,
Hi,
and
Irene! Oh my
it's fine.
God!
Hi,
How are
Mary.
you doing?
I'm fine. It's good to see you. It's good to put a face. Yeah.
Hi!
Hi,
Yeah.
Annie.
Hi,
Our
how are
Everybody
Twitter
has
you?
a lot of.
Hi,
superstars
Bola.
arrived.
Hello, everyone. I'm just trying to get something going. All right, I'm okay. We're live now on Twitter. All right,
Okay.
everyone. Thank you very much for joining. Today's Tuesday, August 18, I think. It's another episode of Serious Banter. I hope everyone will have fun like we've always had on the show. Serious Banter is a live cast type show that eventually makes it into a podcast. But we have fun. We talk about serious stuff, but we have a light conversation around it. And so today won't be any different, and I'm sure we'll have fun. Today we have an interesting topic to discuss, and I think everybody's jumping at the beat to get going. Uh, I would so the way we do it first, I'll start, and then Justin will lay the groundwork, and then everybody else will introduce themselves. We don't introduce people; you introduce yourself. You're not going to give me extra work. All right. So today we're talking about why are you like this? Why are you the way you are? I'll give an example just to run down myself. I My parents divorced when I was very young. My mom remarried. My dad remarried.
Ooh, we're
Um,
going deep today.
I was born in America. I grew up in Lagos. I said my parents were married. Yeah, I said that already. I left Nigeria, moved back to the US when I was 20, started college. Uh, 3 years into my university education, I had cancer. I finished school, got a really good job. About 6, 7 years into my career, I started a startup. So there are a lot of things about me that makes me the way I am. I don't know if anyone wants to start that way, but you know, that's the way I am. And there are a lot of things to unpack into how men and women relate with each other and how we do things the way we do. So Justin, as a PhD affidavit holder on the show, take it away.
You see how he sets me up. After leading with we don't introduce people, you introduce yourself, telling us your life story. You
I'm not
now
people
throw me
now.
under the
I'm not
bus.
people.
That's how you're going to play it today. Okay, but why are you like this? These are the issues. You like this. That's
I
exactly.
already told you that my upbringing is not balanced. So, all right,
All right.
Dustin.
So welcome everybody. First of all, it's always exciting to get people to be willing to step up and have this conversation. Like I was having a private chat with one of us. It's amazing how Serious Banter has evolved from me and Paula basically just not having anything to do with ourselves during COVID and deciding, okay, let's just talk. And then we realized that people wanted to listen to what we were talking about, and that these were actually conversations that were worth having. So here we are. Now, why are we here today, or why did we choose to talk about this today? I mean, what we try to do is let the conversations evolve organically. So we don't sit down here thinking, okay, so what are we going to talk about? We basically listen to what people are talking about, and we say, okay, that's a good one, that's a good one, that's a good one. What is relevant or what is important to people? And everybody's timeline has been inundated with different examples of people behaving badly all over the place. Men, women, boys, girls, children, everybody basically just behaving badly. And we've been planning to have this conversation, this gendered.
Okay, I think we're back.
Were we off? Was I speaking to the air?
Oh, we're waiting for Justin.
Yes.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
No, it was
Can you guys
fine.
hear me?
I mean,
I didn't
yeah,
know
it was
anything was
fine. It
off.
was going
Yeah.
fine. I think it's only him.
I
Okay,
think it
so
might be from
everybody
my
heard
end.
me. Yeah, but
Yeah.
you need to warn this your MTN in Houston network providers, please. Don't have time for that today.
Yes.
Leave that one. Just continue. Continue. Don't worry. Leave my leave my internet.
All right, so it's been it's been a long time coming having this conversation, right? We to put all
Justin,
the
oh
cards on the
yeah.
table. Can you hear me, Bola? You seem to be on another timeline altogether. Everybody is okay but you. Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I mean, we're
Okay,
all good.
good.
Yeah, I think Bola might.
Okay. So it's a conversation we've been looking at with some trepidation and with some dread, I might add. This conversation about gender roles. The whole gender thing is a difficult conversation to have, but it is necessary to have it. And we've been, walking on shells around it. But this time around, I said, Bola, we need to have this conversation.
Are you sure you're not
Fortunate-
tiptoeing now?
No.
Because you're
Well,
tiptoeing. I'm like, okay.
God don't catch us today. Yeah,
yes.
God don't catch us today.
I'm like, okay.
Please, you guys
Well, you
have
see-
my full authority to attack Justin.
Please,
Yeah.
nobody's attacking anybody.
Ridiculous.
It's such a sensitive topic, and the reason why I said walking on shells around it is not necessarily because we are shy about having the conversation, but because, as with what we try to do, or staying consistent with what we try to do on Serious Banter, we want to have the conversation with people who, across the board, can reasonably, constructively discuss the topic. We don't want to have another, what's the term? We don't want to have a fight. No, let's just come together and talk about this thing from the different perspectives, and people get an insight into how the other thinks about it. So along comes this conversation, one particular one on Irene's timeline, which interestingly happened at the right time. So we have people talking about what's that thing? Some guy posted up a topic on Reddit. I think the original thread was on Reddit, where he says he and his spouse had agreed to have a joint account to fuse their finances, more or less. And unbeknownst to him, she was keeping back 10%. And he finds out 4 years down the line that she was keeping back 10%, and he was bringing in his 100%. And the guy says, Auntie, this is not how we planned it now. So you know what's going to happen. I understand your reasons for keeping it back, but you didn't tell me. So, and this is me shalaing the whole thing. So what's going to happen is I'm going to take my own share to catch up with you on where you're at. And the woman says, heck no. You trifling human being. You're abusive. And I think they're talking divorce at this point in time. And the conversation has gone in 10 million and one directions, with the usual people digging into their extreme positions and losing objectivity about the subject. Another interesting topic that I also saw trending was the one where, anyway, without giving too many examples, these are the conversations that we want to have. This was just an example. Why are we like this? Why do the guys do the things they do? Why do the women do the things they do? And our thesis, or my working thesis, is a lot of it has to do with sociocultural issues, background, upbringing, geography, where you are in the world. People are socialized differently, and then men are socialized differently than women. And then nobody basically teaches us. I was just tweeting a few hours ago that nobody teaches anybody really how to do this adulting thing. And a lot of people are basically modeling through, and then we have these extremes, and it's difficult to hear one another. So why are we like this, guys?
Okay, so are we going back to the example of the money? We want to talk about why we have different joint accounts. Can we go there first?
Well, Serious
I like
Banter.
that
You
topic.
can do whatever you want.
Take
We are
it
Serious
how
Banter.
you want
It's
it.
how you like it.
What's that, guys? Put it how you want to put it.
Put it
I
right.
mean, most women, I know my uncle told me, when I was married, I'm divorced now, but my uncle told me when I was married, he said, listen, because, I was getting these big, huge bonus checks. He said, do yourself a favor. He said, because, we have a joint account. My husband and I, we had a joint account. I believe in joint accounts. So that's not, I'm not against that at all. However, since, the bonus checks were separate and apart, he's like, listen, take that bonus check, go put it in the savings for a rainy day. You never know what could possibly go wrong. So this way, the money sat and just grew in another account for a rainy day. And that's exactly what it was used for. Anything that could possibly come up. When we bought a car, at the time I lied and said, my uncle gave me the money, but I took the money from the rainy day account. You know what I mean? So we put it was a big amount, a big chunk of a down payment, things like that. So I do believe in rainy day funds. I think that, it's not a bad thing. And just so everyone knows, my name is Ani Akpe. I'm founder of African Women in Technology. I've been in finance background for over 25 years. So anyway, as a finance person, I see absolutely nothing wrong with you taking monies for a rainy day account, provided that that's exactly what it's for. It's not a touchable account.
Even
It's
if
not a
it's
storage account.
non-disclosure
I
or
believe
non-disclosed.
there's going to be a lot of non-disclosures in marriages, and if y'all don't know that, wake up to it, because there's going to be a lot of things. I just don't believe in you taking the money to go splurge and do dumb things. You wouldn't know, ultimately you'll find that out, but you do need to have funds that you just don't touch.
Very good.
So
Can I jump
I
in there? Oh, okay.
yes,
Sorry.
Annie, go on.
Oh, okay. So, to Sani Yusuf, the only guy here. So
Wait, you're not the only
I'm
guy
ready
here.
to
Calm
be
down.
Oga, Oga, you see me, right? Sani, you see me.
Two of your
Sani, you can see,
He's the
you
only,
can
he's
see
the
me,
only
right?
male guest, apparently.
exactly.
Don't mind Sani.
three men, no.
Sani's technically
There are
not a
3 men
guest.
there is there.
Sani's technically not a guest, but
But anyway, jokes aside, Sani Yusuf and all of that, and two things I actually want to touch on. First of all, it was interesting when Justin was talking about, why we are the way we are, right? He talks about the social, cultural norms and everything, but there's one side, which is a side I actually really, really, I guess I'm a student of, or like a pseudo student of, which is actually also the biological side, which is the taboo side that we don't like to talk about because it is touchy. There are a lot of things that we tell correlations that we see that maybe we don't necessarily like as well, but we can touch on that a little bit later. But to go back to Annie's point, is I do agree with Annie that there will be a lot of ifs and buts. Even me, my own self, I have money that I'm hiding for myself. Like I have money for my own good that I'm hiding for myself. Like don't see it. But I feel like not to again, I'm not trying to start anything here, but there's something here that based off of that conversation on Twitter, which is let's remember that they had an agreement, a husband and a wife had a fundamental contractual agreement. Like you gonna tell me everything you're earning, and I'm gonna tell you everything I'm earning, and we're gonna take both of everything we're earning and we're gonna put it here. All right. If one person goes out, I've never been married before, all right, not that I know of at least. But if one person goes out of that and says, it's not a white lie or anything, and then goes and the husband finds out after 3 years, that is deceit as a basic level. Because I'm pretty sure, where we're going on about okay, is he an abuser? Everything if it was the other way around, where it was Madame that was bringing 100% and our guy was keeping 10%, the way Twitter would have made this thing go around would be different. That's all I'm gonna say. So we should keep that we should keep that energy. That's all I'm saying for now.
Okay, so my thoughts on this is this. First of all, is the fact that I personally do not support that everybody bring 100%. And the reason is that I believe that everybody should have a sense of what is theirs alone. I don't know, okay, like Sani said, I've never been married before as well. But I always feel that in every relationship, you have to have, you have to be whole yourself. And being whole yourself is not just your emotions, it's not just, your goals, your, all the other things. It's also money. It's also, having your own money, that thing that belongs to you is that thing that gives you that sense of yourself, that sense of confidence, and all of that. And so, I do not begrudge her for wanting that. But just like, the average guy on the street who says, I want a Bentley, there's a way to go about it. You understand? The fact that you want a Bentley and you deserve a Bentley or you should have a Bentley does not mean that it's going to be at someone's expense. If you want a Bentley, go get a Bentley. So it has to be. It cannot be on the altar of deceit. It cannot be on the altar of and money issues are very, very delicate. Money and time are famously said to be the biggest indicators of people's priorities and who they really are at their core. So it's really that thing that brings out the good or the devil in people. It's not just about that. And then when I looked at it, and she's and all the narratives, and how she was coming from this background of abuse, and so she had every reason to be apprehensive and worry and all of that. I find that it highlights something that I find recurring in a lot of, not just our debates, but the way that we interact with people, in the sense that we're so overwhelmed with the need to protect ourselves, and our apprehension, our pain. What is the thing that is bothering us, that it kind of blinds us from seeing, one, the bigger picture, and two, how our reaction is affecting others. So everybody's saying, oh yes, she's been traumatized, and it's true, she has been traumatized, and she's coming from this history that needs to be explored and everything. But let's also remember that the next person is not a therapist. It's not the person who is adequately trained to handle your mental health. So if your mental health, if your issues are such that they are precluding you from being able to interact with the next person and be fair and equitable to the next person, then perhaps what is very key is to actually look for ways to fix that particular thing. I mean, the guy had the same reaction anybody would have to finding out that I'm 100% here, and no other person is 100%. The first thing that you do when you feel vulnerable and naked is to want to cover yourself, is to want to oh, let's even the skills, let's get things right. Let's level the playing field. Did he go about it the right way? Well, many people have said, oh, maybe he was a bit harsh, maybe he was wrong. But I'm telling you, when I read that story, I imagined it was my money, and I saw all the shades of the rainbow. Oh my God, I saw everything. I went from livid to rage. I experienced many emotions, and I'm like, okay, if it was my money, would I have the same reaction as he did? My God, there'll be a very, very big fight before we can start talking about, I don't know, 40% evening the scales and whatnot. We'd have burned down something first. Then, we now say, okay, now we have fought the war. Let's now agree on what to do next. So it's those, for me, it really is those considerations. I think that the more that I think about it, the more that I see that, is there really a right or wrong way to address it? Maybe not, not in black and white, because it also depends on, the personalities of the people
Uh,
involved. Yes, Bola, everybody's looking like they cannot hear me very well, and I'm a little worried. Oh,
No, we can
fantastic.
hear you
All right,
clear.
cool. Anyways, if I also
I
chatter
hear
too
you.
long,
I hear
please
you
feel
loud and
free
okay,
to
clear.
stop me.
let's
Because,
get Mary's perspective real quick.
all
Let,
right, cool.
let's get Mary's perspective. But I also want us to look at the underlying or overarching part of the conversation, it being, why are you the way you are? Why are men or women?
Okay, can you guys hear me? Because I feel like
Yes, I can hear you.
okay, because I feel like my internet has been like spinning really slowly. But I wasn't sure if it was me or something else. So I think the first conversation that we need to have is, I think we first of all have assumed that both parties in this particular situation are equal contributors. I think that there's a more likelihood for people to hide things when both parties are not contributing equally. So there's sometimes, and in the cases also with many African women, a disproportionate number of African women are largely sometimes the head of households. They're the ones contributing mostly to the family. And so, excuse me. And so when you have that, why is Sonny making his face so I'm speaking fancy. I see Sonny's face like going up. But so when you have people who are not contributing equally to the family or to the household, then you're more likely to have someone hiding things. So, wait, can I land? Can I land first? And so we know. Wait, okay.
I can't
Okay.
hear you.
Consider, I think the internet is lagging. I said that a few seconds
Yeah,
ago.
there's a lag. There's a lag from your end,
Hello?
Mary. So we seem to have a few seconds between
Hello?
when you say something and when we hear it. So maybe
Mary.
we can't really do much about that. But you could speak slower so we lose less of what it is that you're saying. And
Okay,
you will
is that
hear
my
this in 2
internet?
seconds.
It seems like there's a lag from your end because I think everybody else is correct with the conversation.
You might try closing other apps on your phone. I sense that you're likely from the screen. It seems you're using a phone. So if you have other apps on the phone, you might want to close all other apps.
Yeah, it's probably better if you use a desktop, I think.
But let's go on. Don't let it break your flow.
Okay. So can I continue? I just made some changes here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
So I think that's the point of the conversation is that we have assumed that both parties are equal contributors. In many instances, I know that this context came from Reddit and it's probably like maybe a US based situation. I'm not sure what the context is, but I also think context is important. But when you look at context, a disproportionate number of women are largely the contributors. And so when you have families where one person is contributing more than the other person, then that individual, especially the woman, is more likely to hide things. And I think in this instance, I personally think that that's okay. Because can you guys hear me or am I still off?
Yes,
I see Annie's smiling. Okay. Okay, yeah. So I think in the instance where both parties are not contributing equally, then things like this are likely to happen, whereby one person feels that I'm doing 75 or 80%. I'm paying the bills, paying the rent, doing everything, and maybe the other party is contributing 20%. Then for that 20%, the rest of their own 20%, they want to keep that, they want to hide that, they want to build on that, and they want to save that in the event that anything happens to them. I consider that very proactive. I consider that, and I consider that fair, to be very honest. So that's what I'd like to say.
This is like hide and seek. Like, why are we playing games?
I see Sunny just making all kinds of faces.
Sunny is waiting. Sunny is waiting to unleash.
Right.
It's like we're playing games.
Everybody was in agreement until she mentioned, until the marriage was mentioned, marriage being a factor. But I mean, I had money. I can tell you, I had money. So, but my purposes for hiding, yes, I had money.
Yeah.
But my purpose for hiding the money wasn't necessarily because I looked at it as like I made more than him. That was never the factor because the whole paycheck goes into a combined account. You know what I mean? So, but this was just the bonus money that, we said, hey, I said, you know what, let me put half in the account and then half into an account that just doesn't get touched. So it's money hiding for our future. That's why I saw it. I never looked at it as like I'm gonna
No,
go
no,
take
I'm not
this.
saying who makes more.
No, not you.
I'm
No,
not saying who makes more. I'm saying who contributes.
Sunny, go so that you don't explode.
Okay, so
Okay.
it's very, you know,
Alright.
when I remember when you
Let
invited me
me
for this
try
program because
my
it was
laptop
based on
here.
my reply.
Okay, good.
My reply to that thread was, men must be evil, all right? Because that's the thing. What I think this is a textbook, no disrespect, yeah, but this conversation is a textbook. This guy, there's a whole thread on Twitter where the only context we know is the thread on Twitter. But because we all like, based on the way this conversation has gone, we want to in some way. Nah, it's gotta be the guy's fault. She's gotta be paying more. We're creating all these interesting scenarios, like
Scenario.
we are doing skitty papa, you know, because that's the only way we can actually then create this very interesting movie, this Avatar, like 3-hour Bollywood, to make the guy that okay, it makes sense. The context we have based on the Reddit thing is they made an agreement. We don't know who earns more. It's actually it doesn't even like it doesn't even come to play. The whole idea is regardless who earns more or nothing, two people had an agreement, right? And one person broke that agreement. That is the fundamental thing at play. That's a breach of trust. It's the same breach if one person went out and cheated. It's the same principle because two people decided, I want to be your man, you want to be my girl, right? We're doing this thing, me and you. Now, if you're going to having 10% babe on the sides, right? Someone's going to be pissed, right? And then now she's like, oh, I need 40% boo-boo too to make up for your 10%. Babe. The whole idea is there's deceit here. And everything else is the Twitter, all right? Sorry, just to finish.
So if
I have two questions.
Yeah. I want to know
You know,
if it was you
so
though,
someone
if you
can
found
answer.
out that your wife did this, how upset would you be? Like you found out that she had an account, that she'd saved all this money, and then somehow you found out. Don't care how you found out, but then you found out.
Yeah.
How upset would you be?
Okay, 100%. Before I answer that, let me actually like there's the same thing on Twitter, and I've seen like
He's not
the way
married.
the way guys are going about and the way girls are going about is very different, right? Because the guys are always like, yo, this is a breach of trust. Why every time, like most of that the gal them I've been seeing, it's like, oh yeah, you know, he must be an abuser, he must be this. Like the man must be bad. And I get it. And to answer your question, Anita, right? If I found out that me and my girl, my wife, we had an agreement, we signed it to, we had an agreement, like, you know, we use knife to cut our hand and do everything.
Okay.
She's keeping 10%. Oh, 100% I'm doing what the guy does. She's going on ice. 110%. Because I could go get me another lady that's going to keep her word.
All right, let's kind of who wants to chime?
I do have
Show
two
around.
questions to throw to the group, to everybody.
Sunny, hold on. Hold on, guys. Hold on, guys. Hold on, please. Let's wrap up this segment of this whole money thing. Whoever wants to do it, this is your last chance to talk about this thing. Then let's talk about the whole reason why we're here. Agree, and that's the way we are. So that's the basis of this show, anyways. We're not going to agree. That's established. Everybody, give your last input on this particular piece, and let's go to the big picture of what portion of this topic.
Okay.
Well, we lost
I'm not
you.
very well anymore.
We lost the last few seconds of what you said.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
He
we
just
can
said,
now.
give a
You're back.
one-sentence blurb of how you feel about it so we can move the heck on. That's what he said.
So we can move. So we're not going to agree. It's clear. So everybody, give your last beat on this particular subject, and let's move on.
Okay, I'll go.
All right.
I will say
So
that.
Irene, I think you wanted to say something.
Oh.
Okay, so I was gonna just throw two questions, but I'll make it one. The thing is this: it's clear that on the part of the woman, security is very important, and she needs a sense of That's what she's looking for, a sense of security. Something that says, if the rug is pulled up from under my feet, I need something. But my question is, can it be done without deceit? Is there any way? Have people in history, in the life history of life, ever been able to save money without deceiving their partners? And have that rainy day fund. And then, if that is true, then let us face that. That's really where I stand on this matter.
So I wanted to say that, I think everyone's relationship is different, and marriage, what everyone looks for in marriage is different, or relationships. But I also think that if you both agree on something, you should definitely follow through to it. And looking at the context of that conversation, it looked like there was an agreement from both of them that they were going to accomplish a very specific goal. And it looks like she may have backtracked on that. And at some point, if she felt uncomfortable about the specific agreement, she should have vocalized that. That's why it's good. It's very important to be with someone that you can communicate with, because once you stop communicating, then everyone starts hiding
We
things.
lost Mary again.
And it's almost the same thing as cheating.
She's fine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You can hear her?
I can hear her loud and
Mary,
clear.
keep
You're the one
going. I
that's
think
frozen.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Just then
I
you're
can hear
frozen.
you.
She's frozen on my screen.
Okay.
No, you are frozen. Like when we see you, you're frozen.
Yeah, we can see.
You can hear me.
But
Go
Mary
ahead. Go
can
ahead. Go
hear you.
ahead.
Yeah, so that's that's
Go
what I
on.
was.
So moving along. So you don't have dead time.
I don't get my final say.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, Sonny, your final say on this topic.
Out the house to go find another girl. I don't know what else you got to say. You
For
already
the
said
first time, the man wants to have the last word. Okay.
Yeah. See, I'm outnumbered here already.
He just
Yo.
wants his right.
No,
Restore it.
I just think a lot of times, like, right, and this is just something, and again, it's going to lead us to the part of why we are the way we are, and I think because male and female, man, them are very meritocratic. Generally, like this is the statistics show. While women are a bit more maybe
Don't
social.
talk about women, no. You're talking about your own. Don't talk about women, no. Just say your own
Just
and move.
waiting, no go talk
Just say
past
your own
yourself.
and move on.
Oh no,
Just-
for real,
Just
it's been
say
proven.
your own and waka pass. Oh.
A bit more like I guess communal and that kind of thing, and it's interesting because it plays a role to this conversation where on Twitter 90% of the time, right, majority of the time, the gal them are literally looking for, why did this lady do? There must be an expert.
Tony, stop talking about what women are looking for. Talk about men. Don't say your own. Tony, say what? I can't fight for
What
you.
are men looking for?
He said,
Right?
You fault.
I refuse to fight for you. He said, not even I cannot. He said, I refuse.
While the guys are like, yo, this is deceit, which I think is the thing, is like, again, it's deceit is deceit, and I agree with Mary. If you're not happy, you go back to the negotiating
Right.
table. If you
Yeah.
go out of it,
Yeah.
well, whatever you see now, wait till you could get. Simple. Like, exactly.
All right, so Sonny has muted himself. Justin, Justin, do you want to?
Sonny, off your mic. Oh. We can't save you.
Honorable, it's okay.
Honorable, it's okay. All right, so I think I missed out on most everybody's blurb on the thing, but let me just give mine, which is basically a voice transcript of what I wrote on Twitter about the subject. So, in some way, this actually feeds into the larger conversation that we're having. Bola has said, let's move on from it, and I'll try and link the two as I give my thoughts on it. Number one, principles are principles, and they are usually contexts independent, if you like. So that's another way of saying what is good for A is good for B. In every relationship, trust is a major bedrock. In every position that someone takes in life, there's usually a rationale. When people manifest behaviors, if you ask them, they will offer you some explanation that is valid to them. Might not be valid to you, might make totally no sense to you, but the person offering it, it's offering it from a position of, this is my perceived reality, right? This is what I think, this is what I believe. So coming from that place, the issue at the core of that conversation for me was a conversation was had and an agreement was reached. Now, where there was no duress, if at any point you weren't comfortable with the proposition, because I saw comments like, oh, she probably agreed because she was pressured into agreeing. We don't know all that.
All of the
We don't
details
know
we
all
didn't
that.
have. But
Yeah, we didn't have any of that. What was
Friends
said
and family
is
of the victims.
of the victim, yeah. This was agreed. And then by some stroke of how life happens, 4 years down the line, one party finds out that you weren't holding up your end of the deal. Now, there would be a reaction. Again, whether that reaction is an overreaction or whether the person uses a hammer to kill a fly in that context is a conversation that can be had, but is different and separate from the core of the issue, which is something led to this. And usually we get lost in the thickets, we get lost in the woods when we start discussing reactions to issues. And then you lose the plot altogether, and which is what I saw happening on Twitter. But again, my issue is give what you expect in a relationship. If you expected trust and probity and honesty, if you had baggage from the past, you should be able as an adult, which is what it actually takes to be in a committed relationship, which is what marriage is supposed to be, right? As an adult, I should be able to look at my situation and say objectively as much as possible, because we're still human. I should be able to objectively say, you know what? I have these hang-ups, I have these issues, but I'm not going to let it color what's going on between me and you. So for a lot of people, you find out that every relationship is an active crime scene because of some previous thing that happened somewhere, right? So you come into you come into a situation with somebody who had no business with wherever you were coming from and whatever you were dealing with. And the person is guilty until proven innocent. And that's just a formula for disaster, the kind that we've seen exemplified in that relationship. Now that takes me into the larger context of the conversation. It does appear, to me at least, that men and women, and this is going to sound very cliche, see things differently. And a lot of
are
the
you sure?
times,
I thought we were one. Oh.
yeah. Now you're being cute.
Ah,
Sandy,
you
you're
better
looking
sit
for
down. They will
trouble.
remove
I will-
your password. I'm sorry for you.
I can't protect you. So here's the thing. We are wired differently. And you can come at it like Sani said when he started. You can come at it from a physiological, biological perspective. I mean, that's stating the obvious. We are different. But then you would imagine that at the level of how we frame the world, right? That the differences wouldn't be as stark. But then that would be naive, because a lot of things contribute to how we view the world because we are the gender that we are. And then it colors conversations. And then there is the fact that women have had the short end of the stick for.
Okay, Justin.
Just see it. Just
Look,
come
just
on.
spit it out.
No,
You gotta spit it out. 'Cause, we gotta go quick. Get to the point.
bear with me. The
Okay.
fact remains that women have had the short end of the stick in social constructs for a long time.
You people should stop talking about women. Talk, man,
Okay.
your team.
Your voice. Trust me, there are
No,
two strong women
what-
voices. that will-
What I just said is an objective. I consider it an objective truth that women
Okay.
All
have
right.
had the short end of the stick, right? I mean, patriarchy is a thing. All right. So where that is true, we need to look at how it has affected how we engage with one another and how we engage with issues, because we generally are not making a success of it. People dig into extreme positions. And my thesis is, look, two things that are opposed to one another can be true at the same time. So it can be true that women have been oppressed in patriarchal systems for a long time, right? It can also be true that not all men are enablers of that system, right? And therefore, we do not need to turn every conversation into a gender war. It's not a we versus you thing. And let's examine, therefore, why we do these things. What do we tell the girls when they're young? What do we tell the boys when they're young, right? That are leading to, I mean, I'm raising 2 kids. I'm married with 2 kids. I have a 12-year-old son and I have a 10-year-old daughter who is going on 11 in a few months. And in the course of this conversation, I'll probably talk about how this plays out in even my attempts at parenting, because nobody taught us this thing. Like I said, nobody sat me down and said, this is how to be a father. I was raised by my mother. So yeah, let me shut up before Annie shuts me up.
Annie, please, you have the floor, please.
No, it's not that. It's just that, I just believe that, yes, he's right, to the point of like saying that there's so many distinctions in how, women are raised versus how men are raised, and, growing up wherever you live and, where you currently live, and then your life experiences is what grooms you to who you are today. Look at us, we all have different perspective on what we just talked about. So I'm just trying to get to the fun part of this conversation because we got people watching us. So
yeah, let's keep it fun.
So, because we're every day I'm seeing Twitter wherever they're all arguing about men and women roles. I do that every day. That's I'm a strong advocate of obviously women. So, let's get to what other topic we can talk about.
What do you mean when you say you're an advocate of women? Maybe we should start from there.
I believe my experiences, again, being in corporate America and working and always walking into a boardroom where, you could actually be one of 20 people in the room and only 2 or 3 are women generally. Right. So, and it depends on the meeting and what you're learning on. And some points, how you communicate, the way you communicate, what objective you're trying to make, having them take you seriously. So those are the things that I had to experience. And when I experienced it, I made sure that other women were prepared for it, not to combat it, but just in the sense of having the confidence that you need to have in order to get your point across without losing, what you're trying to market, whether it's yourself or your product or whatever points you're trying to make in any meeting at any time, at any moment. So people think that they're open generally until you're actually having to work with them, because I've worked with a lot of men that feel they're open until I have to tell them that your opinion is wrong. And then all of a sudden, there's some egos that come into play. Some people are not like that, but others could be like that. So, and you have to work through that. And a lot of people aren't used to those challenges, especially if you're thrown into a position where you could literally lose your job if whatever decisions you make aren't effective.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by having confidence in being able to train young women and girls that, hey, these things are going to happen. It's not a thing where I'm not walking around here saying, for all the men that, try to hit on me or make me think the way they wanted me to think or wanted me to just shut up and play whatever role that they had in their mind of the way they grew up. Yeah, whatever. It happens and it continues to happen. But to me, it's a non-factor. The factor is you. What are you doing about it? How are you changing today? What decisions are you making today that's going to impact your tomorrows? And no matter what anyone says to you, you're going to stand up for yourself or you're going to back down, because if you back down, you'll always back down. And there are times to back down, but just knowing when to and just having the confidence to speak your opinion. So that's what I mean by, woman advocate. I'm not, you won't find me bashing anyone specifically unless I'm bashing the action that you took, not your gender role.
Gender. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So
I think a lot of it is also largely cultural, like Annie said. A lot of mothers, even parents, they basically they learn to hold their girls accountable, but not their boys. For the cleaning, for the cooking.
Why is that?
It's cultural. I'm not sure if I can explain why, but I just feel like it's cultural. But that aside, I will say, one of the reasons why I started following Irene on Twitter is because her voice is so strong and her voice is so very unique. And especially on the last topic we just discussed, I was looking at all the points that she raised and I thought it was quite interesting. I would love to learn more about what Irene thinks about, why men and women are very different.
Okay, so there is there is there is the cultural part. There is a part, where we're all raised, and I mean, I think that everybody who's been raised in the average Nigerian setting has been through, go and learn how to cook.
Yeah,
Who will marry you if you don't know how to cook?
exactly.
Because and really,
Ali is just laughing so hard, man.
I don't know if you boys ever heard that. Like, has your parents ever told you, Sunny, Bola, and Justin, that if you don't know how to cook,
yes,
Yeah.
every from the moment that the girl
those
child
are
is
some of the
born, it's a
differences.
race to getting her ready to get other children and
Right.
raise other children and be this wife and be, and all of that. And then, what has happened in the 20th, 21st century is that, we've now added all this. Okay, but, we want you to be a good mother, but okay, you can also now be this successful woman as well. And then, and in marrying all of these things together is where we have all this conflict that we see today.
Yeah.
So, if we are all in the agreement that, the woman's place is in the kitchen, there's nobody who's fighting over who's doing chores. We'll be writing long threads about, I don't know, if your mother-in-law is sitting in the front of the car, who ate 3 pieces of meat at the
Yeah, you know what? But
introduction.
those things actually are not reality because data shows that women are actually heads of households providing for their families. So I'm not sure where people constantly come up with all these narratives. A lot of mothers are the ones who pay the
It's
bill.
just that thing that has been passed on from generation to generation.
So it's
Well,
like,
my mother
it-
tried that with me, but as you can see, it just didn't work. I was like, Mom, we're going to marry a chef, okay? She
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
know how to cook. And then lo and behold, I end up marrying a chef and learning how to cook because he cooked everything anyway. But I'm just saying, it just didn't work out.
but none of the guys answered the question. So Sunny, Bola,
Okay, I actually want to answer, but I wanted
wait,
you guys to.
have any of you guys been told that if you don't know how to cook, no one would marry you?
No, but can
or they
I
will send you
answer
back
now?
home.
Can I answer?
Um,
Can I answer?
I can tell you what my mother actually told me.
What?
So when I was 15 and heading for uni, by the time I turned 15, getting ready for uni, I could make 4 different types of soup. And my mother's refrain was, no woman should use cooking and doing yanga for you.
That's true. That's true. That's good.
So maybe my mom was different. She is different. I mean, like I said earlier, I was
Oh.
raised by my mom. Maybe she was different. Because then the common refrain is that women generally don't teach their sons to do these things. But in my own nuclear family and in my extended family, I see a lot that is not in that line.
Justin,
Justin, can I
let
throw
me
a spanner?
add
Can
to
I
what
throw a
let me add
spanner
to
in
what
that?
Justin. Wait, please,
What?
I beg. Let me add to what Justin said. So, like in my house, my mom was a single mom, and it was just me and my brother. Because everything, the context it varies depending on how you grow up too. Me and my brother is a fantastic cook. Even till today, in their house, like they get to a
I
point where
still cook.
his wife will cook, and sometimes my brother will have to go remake it. Um, so the context varies. Like me, I'm not a great cook because I was spoiled growing up. I was the last born for a long time, but I'm functional. Like I'm functional cook. It's not as if
You
don't be
can
have
make
some
indomie.
Exactly.
serious
You
indomie.
can boil egg.
I can boil like I can. If you make soup, there's no kind of swallow I can't make. There's no type
You
of
can
swallow I
boil
can't
the
make. If
gari.
you want to try, I can even find a yeah, same. There's no type of swallow I can't make. You just have to make the soup for me, and everything. And there's no in my house. There's no such thing. Where's my food? If there's soup, I carry my leg. If there's rice, I need to cook. I cook it. If there's so that's that. Now, conversely to that conversation about food, see, their gender roles that has been defined by culture or our parents growing up, and we can't. There's nothing we can do to dispute that. In the same context about you guys talk about food, when talking about who learns how to drive first in the house, or fixing a car, or doing menial work around the house, it's typically the guys that they look at, right? But that does not mean that there are no females or ladies that do stuff around the house to fix stuff. Because in as much as we talk about food, there are other things that in my own house it was the guys they looked at to do. Eh? Like
Change the
I don't know,
tire.
I changed tire.
We are not in the family.
I would like to
Who
see a
that?
household that grew up in Nigeria that had both boys and girls. That the girl learned how to drive
Well,
a car before
well,
the guy.
let me jump in. let me jump in there.
Right.
Bella. So I've listened to everyone's
Again,
and everything. All right.
we are the way we are.
I mean, and me. Let me even be saying it now. Whoever wants to vex, you start
Wow.
vexing from now.
Let's go.
Because-
Let's be checking the timeline for people sniping at you.
right? It's the truth. Exactly what you said about that, right? And I called it like, look, we talk about gender. I think the first thing, first of all, is we've lied to a lot of young men and women today, growing up. We've fundamentally lied to them about the realities of life. I think we've looked at the world and we've tried to socially engineer the world into this nice distant utopia of how it would be if we were the ones with a blank canvas. Unfortunately, it's never ever gonna work that way. The statistics have been done, everything. We talk about social stuff and culture, but the one part that again people don't like to talk about is this biopsychological part of these things. Culture did not just appear. Majority of what you call culture is based on common sense about survival. For the majority of humans till today, men and women had to literally survive together to fight off animals, all of these things. And
that's geographic, right? Where you are dictated that whole
there is a
idea,
reason why you are.
of
Let me
culture.
give you an example. If you look at, let's say, something like gender roles, right? Just whatever you have in your head in gender roles. If you trace the whole world today, what we call gender roles or what we expect of men and women in different societies, different climates, is still not very, very different. It changes context, but it's still not very different. What we've lied to people saying, oh, what they're saying, we're blank. No, we're not the same. All right. If me and you should go to school, somebody will carry first, somebody will carry second. We're not the same. I cannot go and say I want to race Usain Bolt. He's got things that no matter how much I train, it's not just gonna happen. We need to, and again, I'm not saying that means I should, someone should tell me not to do athletics. I'm trying to sort of like gather my thoughts around that. Culture didn't just come out of nowhere. We need to understand the why. What we've done today is we've seen how parts of culture has been used, especially to maybe demean the female gender, like majority ladies are like what people, and has actually been done by what I call weak men specifically, right? And then we've taken that as the norm. Like when we talk about patriarchy and all of these things, the number one victims of patriarchy are men. Because when it was World War II, a guy like me, I didn't have a say. I just had to go and carry a gun and shoot people I didn't really know. I was conscripted. That was the patriarchy conscripting me. The patriarchy did not conscript you. It was nice because I had to go now and die. If you come and knock on my door and I look at my wife, go and check who is there. Suddenly the patriarchy will make sense because at that time.
Well, that's not true. If she's a trained shooter, she
then we gonna get to the if and but if she's a did you that's the thing. How many, like, no disrespect, but how many, even if she's a trained, she was still go and check with. The thing is, what I'm trying to say,
be a man.
be a man. It's I see this thing and I call it like, as well, we are trying to find equality, but we should not get into the place of selective equality. So I'll give you like a quick, what's it called? As human species, right? A lot of these things we call all social, cultural, and all of that. We don't live in a vacuum, right? If, for example, you grew up in a certain part of Nigeria and your mom is like, you need to learn how to cook, right? It's not necessarily because your mom is actually trying to demean you. It's because your mom is saying, this is the context that you live in. This is what's going to make you very, 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 like, maybe like pricey in that particular context. The same way, if I'm a Fulani guy, if I don't know how to chop cane, no one will marry me because in that particular context, that is what goes. It changes from context. So we try to use maybe like the Western world sometimes and like, try to equate this. Very, very difficult. But just to round on my point, to talk about why we are who we are and why we're different. We can talk about Scandinavia. Scandinavia is the society in the world that maybe I would say in terms of gender equality, they've gone further than any other society. I think everyone can agree, right?
Yeah.
No one would dispute that.
Okay.
And they've actually tried, they're the best social engineers. They've tried to say, okay, what's it called? There was one study they did, one of the largest studies ever, where they looked at, for example, like things like STEM, where, a lot of guys are in STEM and you don't have a lot of females, but also like nursing, right? And the same thing, I can even make a joke about like, if a guy, you go on a date to the guy and he tells you he's a nurse, how many women will even take him serious? But story for another day.
No, nurses in the US make a lot of money. So if a guy tells you he's a nurse,
I
you better
mean,
back that.
I know. Story for another day, though. Story for another. But here's what they did. They did it. So they went.
A
They
lot
did
of money is relative. Oh.
exactly. They did a lot of. They did a lot of what's it called? Like I guess social engineering programs to try and like equate a lot of things, because what we do with the social engineering is we look at like, oh, 80% of coders are male, 20% are female. It must be, we pick one thing, the most demeaning thing. It must be prejudice. It must be sexism. Actually, it's a multitude of things. And guess the biggest thing there is choice. So what they did in Scandinavia, did a lot of these things. When they found the data, right, it turns out that in Scandinavia now, because you've given people free choice, all those things that we call gender differences, they were larger. So in Scandinavia, you have way more, like basically the USA is a less sexist environment than Scandinavia, where people have the choice. If you leave people to do what they want to do, a lot of the things we call cultural or like, actually at their own accord, people would want to fit into these boxes. And that shows you that we should be very careful, like picking the one thing and everything. We're very different, and we're very different for different reasons. Let's understand that if we want to make an equal society versus actually saying chasing sets of specific outcomes. Again, my thoughts are everywhere. I'm trying to gather them. So I would probably sort of like hold off here.
So can I ask a question, and maybe anyone could answer? Like, what do you think is the way forward? How do you think we can stop these stereotypes or differences in the way men and women are raised? I'm just curious, like, are there any solutions? Because as much as we're having this conversation, I feel like because people are sort of raised a very particular way and their behaviors are ingrained, they continue the system, in terms of you go cook, you go clean, and all of that stuff. So do you think there's a way forward? How do you think that parents, men and women like yourselves, the next generations, can stop like these, promoting these stereotypes?
I could start if anybody.
Can I say something real quick? I want to say something real quick. Okay, Irene, go ahead. I'll talk after you. After Irene.
I think that, and I was going to point it out when Justin talked about his upbringing. You see, when you look at the undertone of all the upbringing that we have, we see that what is recurrent is survival in a community.
Yeah.
That's really what. Because is expected to cook, because she's expected to be caregiver, her role is to perfect that. But even for the men, when they are taught to cook, it's so that no woman will do shakara for you. It's still for the home. It's still so that you can survive in the home, so that you can survive in the community. So since that is the core of it, can we now take away the specifics of it and now focus on survival, and now focus on you know what, she needs to learn how to cook because you're going to eat. Because when I wanted to learn how to drive, I grew big, much bigger than everybody in my class very early. So I wanted very adult things very quickly as well. And then when it was time for me to learn how to drive, my father said to me, there's one thing that you're going to have to do for the next 3 months. You're going to wake up in the morning, you're going to wash the car, you're going to check the oil. And it was the most annoying thing. You're going to do, who does, I don't know, monthly car tire changes when there's no problem with the car? But it really was that, his thinking was this: don't be a damsel in distress on the road. If you're going to drive a car, you should know how the basic things about maintaining a car. And then, if we take this approach to every other thing that we do, we see that these things become less of issues, because it becomes more of, I'm cooking because I want to eat. I'm the one with the flair. I'm the one with the time. And then we need to disabuse this notion that gender roles is equal to gender equality. That's not true. I don't know how to explain it in a much more expand on it. But
expand on
basically
it.
What I'm saying. So basically, this is it. If both of us can cook, it's not the mark of equality. There are many coming to time to cook. Who is available? Who has a passion for it? Who has a flair for these things? I believe that in our bid to fit everything in a stereotype, we've killed out all these other nuance that make these chores less of the chores that they are. So if we back to answering Mary's question, if we expand it a little and say that, the point here is how to survive in a community, not just survive, but survive in a community. Basically means, how am I going to interact with the opposite gender? How am I going to, live with other people? How am I going to do business? How am I going to perceive, how am I going to make friends? All of those things. If we focus on building those skills or ingraining those skills, it becomes less of a gender role or gender war or gender anything,
Right.
and becomes more of, I cooked because I was hungry and I needed to eat.
Yeah.
I took the, if I cannot physically lift the tire, I found somebody who could lift the tire. I'm not an invalid because of, one aspect of my gender. So yeah, that's my point.
All right, all right. Thank you. So this is why I even wanted to say, even beyond how like solutions and everything, or say before something that predates or a prerequisite for the solution is that one of the things that I've seen as a pattern is goalpost shifting. Even something as basic as this conversation that we have, and everybody wants to attack me. Please go ahead. But if I speak at this conversation we're going to have, oh, he must have been suffering her. Oh, let's stick to the fact that if we can just stick to in any situation, I see so much goalpost shifting. And I'll say it, and a lot of times I get it from women. But if you want to attack me, attack me. But I get a lot of goalpost shifting from women. Now, if you say I'm wrong, I'll be glad to be wrong. But I feel like there are a lot of goalpost shifting in anything we are discussing, especially when it comes to this kind of role. So I'm going to mute myself.
Well, I'll
Whoever
open your
wants to
shirt. Let's
attack
see
me.
whether you're wearing Kevlar. Are you wearing Kevlar under your shirt? Because
I've said my own. That's pretty much about the last thing I would say on this show today.
The funny
But
thing though, I can actually jump on that. It's again, I do not claim to be an expert in human behavior. It's something like I work in psychology, like I build software, so I learned to love like psychology, and my part of psychology I really love. Like I'm just a student. I'm the pseudo student at best is intergender dynamics, right? Because I grew up with like weird seconds. I grew up with nine sisters, while my friends were struggling to talk to girls. I was always comfortable. I was that guy that did the fear. I'm like, again, I'm not the fear. Come, bring, give me a number. Like I was that guy because from a young age, I understood a lot of things about like how just we like we're very different. And for example, one really great book about guys is Why Men Are the Way They Are. Literally, just like this topic, there's a book called Why Men Are the Way They Are by Dr. Warren Farrell. I recommend everyone on this channel, this panel to read that. A very short book, amazing. How he talks about, like, for example, actually men are the true romantics because we're the ones that marry across the economic ladder. We don't mind going to village to marry a kaite, but how many 4,500 CEO women will go to village and marry?
Well, but that trend is shifting now. That's
what I'm saying. It's like we're the true romantics, right? We would go and marry a kaite, but Sheryl Sandberg is not going to go and marry John Boo. She will not marry John Boo. It's not going to happen.
shots fired.
It's the truth.
Esther Climate, if you want to join, send me a message. I'll send you the link. Esther, if you want to join, let me know.
So talking about that is like, for example, one of the reasons why that goalpost shifted, right? And it's always when you see the goalpost shifting thing happen, it's always like girldom supporting girldom. And one of the reasons that there's actually like a theory about this is about like how, think about it, we were hunters and gatherers, right? Me and you 1,000 years ago, or let's say 10,000 years ago, we would have been going to kill lion. Wow, like ladies, is it true now? We're going to go and kill lion and bring meat. What ladies were doing the gathering, and part of the reasons why, for example, there's explanation why, for example, women can identify colors like subtle colors. Where your wife will tell you, like, is pink now. Like, no,
it's not fuchsia.
It's not
fuchsia.
But the explanation for that is, think about it. A lot of ladies were picking berries. The difference between a poisonous berry and the one that will literally have nutrition could like that kill you. All right. So over time, natural selection did its thing. So part of that is like women became more communal, right? Why is it that when a small girl, 3 years old, the worst thing she can hear is, "We're not going to be your friend again"? Have we ever asked that question? It's the worst thing she can hear. You're not part of the group. We are not going to be your friend again. But you, as a guy, man, if they tell you you're not going to be your friend again, oh man, you will go play with your own ball, nothing.
Sonny, off your mic. Off your mic.
Exactly. Nobody wants to talk. Are we talking?
Sonny, off your mic. Anybody wants to
Can I say
interject,
something
rebut?
about the
Epic,
goalpost shifting? The thing is,
please. Thank you.
I find
Thank you.
um conversations on the internet a bit, in the sense that, not from a malicious point of view, it's just, it's agenda, so it's really difficult to have an honest conversation
Agenda.
when agenda is on the table. When the agenda is that I must support either my gender, or I must support this cause. So everything that looks like it's like Big Brother advocacy. And lady is looking at herself in the mirror, so vote for her. It's exactly that's how I see it. So it makes it a little difficult for you to have nuance. It makes it difficult, to have the most honest of conversations when it comes to these kind of issues. And then, because of the way that social media is, there are things that you cannot say online. Let me explain. Let me even go back to this hiding money thing. A lot of people hide money. It's not new.
Yes, yes,
In fact, more people than not,
yes.
7 out of 10.
honestly,
By people, do you mean women?
everybody knows this. But you
Sorry,
see, the
Irene.
moment that you come out
Irene,
now,
slow down. By people, do you mean women?
Yes.
I plead the fifth.
Answer your gender. Answer your gender.
But let me help you out. Let me help you out with that quick question. You know what's so funny? It's the men that told the women to hide their money. It's men that tell
Interesting.
women to hide the money. It wasn't even a woman that told me to
What
hide
are
my
your
money.
sources?
Not my
What are your
mother.
sources? Give us. What are your sources? Give us more than one
Listen,
source.
it was my uncle. My uncle
And
said, hide
and
money.
and who else?
Now, it's a woman that told me. Women, I'm telling women after my uncle told me, but it started with my uncle telling me.
The thing also is this: they're just things you cannot say, because they're not general. They're very specific to the outcomes can vary depending on involved. So, if I came out today and I said, "Oh, you know what? But it's wise, save money, hide this, underreport this," basically it's fraud. But would there be circumstances where it would make a lot of sense and you should do it discreetly? Well, I plead the fifth again. I will not say it
All right.
publicly. I will not
Irene, I
come out
have
and
two
say,
questions
this
for
is
you.
best practice.
Irene, I have two questions for you.
Mhm.
I think I forgot the second one, but this agenda thing. Mm,
Mhm.
mm. Hey, I remember. So one, how do we strip out agenda and having a proper conversation? One, two. Are you telling me that it's only on social media that people have agenda? Offline, they don't have agenda.
There's no agenda.
No, it's not. It's not that there's no agenda offline. But you see, when you are not campaigning, there's a lot more room for ease. So if me and you are sitting together now, we're having a simple conversation.
You give it to me the way you need to.
You
You
know,
give it to me straight.
it's going to end with you misogynist, you misandrist, you this and that and that and that and that. It's not going to happen with that way. Number two is that when
Justin.
you're talking about stripping, when you're talking about stripping of agendas, and being able to communicate freely, I would say that the reason agendas are actually a byproduct of improper conversations on the time on in the public space. If you know today that for disagreeing that you will get punched in the mouth, or the internet equivalent of it, you have to now, at a point, I'm telling you, one of my friends called me the other day and said, sometimes you need to weigh your peace versus this opinion that you want to say, and then just shut up. Just press delete, delete, delete until that tweet is completely gone. So it really is that.
I
So
think I agree with you, and it's something that Justin always says. And one of the, that's why he's an advocate of closed social media, where
Hello?
like this now. This would be our Twitter, and only six of us would be part of it. Nobody can enter and hear what we're saying, so we can actually have real conversations, and nobody's boboing who. Like I saw the conversation about, for example, no one should men shouldn't hit women, and yeah, you said period, and people said all sides, and it was like period. If you don't like what I'm saying, block me. The truth is, we can disagree. I don't necessarily agree fully what you're saying, but I wanted to ask you. But the next tweet you wrote, or the next response to your tweet, I think it was a retweet that you put on your page, gave me all the answers I wanted, and I was like, "There's no need to ask you because I get where you're coming from." The thing is, a lot of people will just respond for effect. Nobody wants to really understand. Okay, why does she have this point of view? So are you trying to say that someone should just be hitting another person? Like someone else said, if a guy knows that a woman is not supposed
Not to
to hit a
correct
guy,
you. People on the internet really like to correct people.
yes, yes. And one of the things that I think Justin
And I
said
think
about
also it's important to not to confuse groupthink, because there's a lot of groupthink on Twitter whereby the most dominant voice said something and then everyone's like, oh yeah, that's true, and no one's thinking for themselves anymore. So that's a whole, like Sani said, it's a whole like science behind like groupthink and stuff.
no, I definitely get that. So I don't want to hog the microphone. So let's shift gears a little bit. I want everybody to tell me one thing. One, just there are a lot of things, but you have to pick one. So start thinking right now, and whoever thinks quickly can go first. One thing that shapes, just one thing that has shaped the way you are.
Hmm.
I that's why I say one. One is hard.
You're
Um,
saying one or one sentence?
just no, you can
Is
explain.
everybody thinking or is everybody static? Now I'm wondering if my internet is bad or you guys are just thinking.
I can start.
No,
I can
no,
start.
you can be a
I mean,
sentence, you
like,
can shalaye, you can give a paragraph, but it's just one thing. So, but don't go and add other things though and try to cook them together.
I, I can start, Bola. I can
All right,
start.
good.
In a lot of ways, when you were narrating your story, it wasn't too different to mine. I think my childhood, the fact that my parents got divorced from a very early age, and I would say, I don't really talk about it publicly. So I'm not gonna go into details just because of respect of people. But I think that experience really like shaped me in a lot of ways because there's a saying: if somebody should pray for you that may your road be rough, you should say Amen. And I never understood that saying until I got older. Now, may your road be rough because if I didn't go through certain things, I wouldn't be this person. People don't know that I couldn't even speak properly till I was like 5. A lot of people don't know this. I wasn't always this bubbly, confident person. There was a time when it was all dark and so that experience in my childhood fundamentally changed me. I'm even writing about it. And I'm titling it "Dots Only Connect Backwards." It's only when you look back that the dots connect. So for me, that's it. My upbringing, my childhood for sure.
Yeah.
okay, for me, it's
Who
that
wants to go next? You've had enough time to think. Or
for me, it's that I think for me it's been that I've been born on the reverse side of it. So yes, my parents were separated when I was 7, but shocker, I was raised by my dad. So what happened? What that meant is that I got to see the guy's side of it, and I got to see
interesting.
how much different it was, when the woman is the single parent and when the man is a single parent. Just tell you it's different. Everybody's grappling with the single. It really is, and it also disabused from me the notion that men are these hard, unthinking, unfeeling beings that is projected, that is popularized, all over the internet. Be a man, he can take it, he can. I saw men not take it. you know I saw men need off days. I saw men, you know yeah, struggle. you know and so, that's why I keep talking about, being able to take a step back and look at the big picture. For me, it's what has made me look at the big picture. And because I always had my mom close by, but just not in the same house with us. I also saw it from her end too, and I learned very important financial lessons from it as well. Yeah, especially the need for independence. But shapes, the way that I think, the way that I analyze issues, and the need to say, are you sure that the other person that you're so branded is okay? Because it's possible that they're struggling, even though they look like they're fine and they're strong and they have it under control.
Interesting. Interesting. Um, who wants to go next? This is actually
I
way
like
better
the
than
way
I
I like
thought.
the way Annie is smiling. I can't wait to hear what she has to say.
Annie has an agenda. Like there's an agenda behind, always an agenda behind that smile. Annie, y'all scary.
You know,
Yo.
it's so funny.
You
It's
just
so
smile
funny
like,
about this. Well, my father, my parents were students, when I was growing up. So, anything we ever wanted, they said, you have to go work for it, right? Even at like 9, 10 years old, we were like, we want this doll, blah, 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 blah. My dad said, who's going to buy you this doll, right? So what my dad did was based on where we lived, they lived in student housing. And everyone always needed these babysitters, right? So because they
was
needed,
this in the U.S.?
yeah, in the U.S. Because everyone needed these
Okay.
babysitters while my parents were students, full time students. Then I got a job at 9 years old, babysitting, other little kids in the community. It actually turned into a full time gig, during the summer months. So, and I grew up doing that. So my upbringing has always was kind of based on the fact that my parents refused to buy me what I wanted. Instead, they made me work for what I wanted. So because of that, then it made me very independent in the way that I looked at things in the perspective in which I come in from. So for me, it's like they say women, oh, they're so independent because of this and this and this. No, my upbringing wasn't, anything that threw it off. It's just my parents were always, you have to go and make your own money. Nobody will just come and buy you anything. So with that in mind,
Mhm.
then anything that I've always done, I've always gone about it, in aggressive fashion, only because I knew I was the only one that I was kind of supporting, even when I was with others. So my point to that is like women that are raised a certain way where they're more taught to be independent will always have a different mindset in terms of the things that they're going about to get accomplished. If your father is sitting here telling you this is the way to be, you don't need anybody to buy you anything. I beg, go and make your own money. Then you go about it that way, not as an insult to anybody that comes along, men or women. It's just to put that perspective into you that drives whatever thing you're going towards. So, that's why I am the way that I am, because my father, said, no, we're not buying you these things. We're not buying you this dollhouse. We're not buying you these shoes. We're not even going to buy you your own car, because I had to work for that too. So, from that perspective, I really appreciate that.
Wow.
No, I really appreciated it, in the long run, because it really taught me like life skills that I would have never had obtained if it would have been the other way around based on the way that I turned out to be. So, and I consider myself very successful, in terms of how I drive my business in the way that I do things now. So,
Boss lady.
thank you. So, but I think
We
that
lost Irene for a
that's
second,
why
but
I'm
she'll
trying
be
to say,
back.
when
Just,
someone said women advocate, that's why, because I had to do it for myself. So it's nice to teach other people to focus in on that for themselves.
well, you could be a human advocate. Okay,
It is, no,
ignore
I agree. No,
it.
no, let's go.
uh,
Let's go. Since you want to tiptoe into the water, I beg, yeah, tiptoe, and let's put your whole body in. It could be, yes, it could be. But I specifically chose this because I actually, let me not say this. It's not just women. I've taught men too. Any man that calls me and I have the time and I have the ability, I will. I've helped plenty of men, and I just don't, I don't advertise anything. There's nothing that you will see, oh, I did this. It's not going to happen. What you see me advocate for is more, you'll see more of the women thing, but there's so many things that I do behind the scenes for so many different people, that if they're not talking about it, you'll never hear about it from me specifically. So yes, it could be anybody. I still do that. I don't exclude. I will help you. However, it just depends on what my schedule is at that time. But anybody that needs it.
Don't mind, Bola. There's absolutely nothing wrong
All
with
right.
choosing the demographic that you want to advocate for.
There's
Absolutely
nothing.
nothing
I
wrong
was
with
also I would say tongue in cheek. Actually, there's nothing wrong with it. But this is serious banter, and I have to be mischievous sometimes.
Bola, can you see
Who
Mary
wants to go
bouncing?
next?
Why are you asking who wants to go next? You can't see Mary bouncing there since.
Well, I'm not bouncing. I was going to say I know Annie is always like humble about what she does, but I'm always like promoting her, like, hey, you got to talk about what you do. But I think she does really good work. Um, yeah, I think I have to agree with Annie that I think parents play a very important role in how girls and boys are sort of like how they end up like being in society. I think, Bala, that's a very, very good question because I actually was thinking, I was like, what made me who I am? I'm not sure if I can point to one thing exactly. Yes, I agree, Ani, parents play a very important role. But I think in terms of my work with advocacy and supporting women and fighting for the economic empowerment of women, one role that shaped me was when I was in college. I spent some time here in New York in college, and I think I was the first and only ever student to sit on a committee by professors. I'd been nominated by professors. And the committee was the Sexual Harassment and Assault Committee. And I sat on that committee for 3 years in my undergrad. So imagine like being 18, 19 years old, sitting on the committee where you're seeing and reading reports of rape and all these different things. I think for me, that one thing like really shaped me and changed basically like I as soon as I like graduated I was like I want to fight for women, support women, and I really made my life really about women. But that one incident and sitting on the committee for 3 years, and I think when I left the committee they saw like my professors saw how that impacted me, and they never allowed a student to sit on the committee again because when you hear how certain men have been raised, and we're not talking about like African men, or you're talking about like upper middle class white men who are basically going to these parties and raping girls and doing all these different things, it really shapes you. So I think that one incident, in addition to what Ani said, how parents raise their children definitely matters. But for me, in terms of being, saying that I wanted to be that voice and really supporting women, I think sitting on that committee really, really shaped me.
Mary, I have a question on your experience there. How did you cope? And I ask this question because the very first time that I found myself in a boardroom of superiors and all of that,
Yeah.
I did the Nigerian thing. I promise you. I kept quiet. I sat like a statue. I didn't speak until I was spoken to. And by the second meeting, everybody, my bosses from Paris said, "This girl is dumb." And and my bosses and my line managers were struggling to defend me and say, "Oh, no, she's probably just like." In fact, my boss even came and told me to say, "Say something, even if it's stupid, just say something, please." So
Yeah.
how did you cope with that?
Yeah, I don't think it's something that's easy for someone to cope with, especially if you're that young. And I think everyone, interprets trauma differently because these are very traumatic cases. And you're getting these huge reports that you have to go through, and you're trying to decide if the person should still stay on campus in college and all these factors. So for me, I initially, when I first got on the committee, I was very quiet. So I won't lie, just like you, I was very quiet. But very soon, when female students, when other female students found that I was on the committee, they used to come into my room to speak with me. And by the time I heard their stories, you also have to go back into the committee meeting and not be biased, because some of the people they're talking about are people they're your friends and all these different things. So it's like, how do you separate both things, right? Someone that allegedly committing this atrocious act towards another person whom you may not know, for example. And those two behaviors, you can't reconcile them. So, I mean, I'm not sure if there's a particular way to respond, but I think I began to speak up after people began to come to me to tell their stories. Yeah, but I think the greatest challenge is, how do you not be biased? You know what I mean? And you really have to look at all the facts, and you have to really engage and all of that. So Yeah.
Thank you. Who was
Interesting.
next?
Thank you, Rich.
Justin.
Yes,
Justin.
but your question is a very wicked
I,
question.
I
And
want
first
you
of all,
guys. I said it. I want you guys before we started.
and
I want
I
you.
mean, I raise hand for everybody who has answered the question already. You guys give a great response because I'm looking at him. I'm like, this guy. We are not. We go through life in phases. So
Mm-hmm.
the person I am today
You pick one. Pick one.
is far removed. Now you asked your question the way you wanted to ask
Hey,
it. I
you
have the
cannot be shifting
prerogative to answer the
goalposts.
way I
You
want
cannot shift goalposts.
to. Shall I? Anyway, so here's the thing. I am going to terribly fail at answering that question if you police me. So please, Mbok, Biko, I beg you. Please, with the permission of everybody, please, Bola, just allow me. And different perspectives are important. My perspective on how to answer the question is different from yours. These are the things we are talking about. People should be allowed to
These are the people that
express
want to rule
themselves.
Nigeria. These are the people that want to rule Nigeria.
So here's the thing, guys. I have lived several lives. Let me put it that way. Right? I like to break my life up into chapters, if you like. There are several significant milestones for me when I look back in life where I have taken what you might call a turn, right? Which have been turning points and have been radical revolutions in the sum total of who I am. So in one aspect, a very huge influence on me is the fact that I was raised by my mom. Now, I don't come from a divorced or separated home, but I come from a polygamous home, and I was raised under my mom's roof. So we did not live under one roof or even in one city, if you like. And being raised by a very independent, very strong, very pragmatic woman has a great influence on me, how I perceive gender relations, how I relate with women, and all of that. And then the values that I inherited from coming from that setting. But it doesn't come without its own drawbacks, right? If we're being real, it doesn't come without its own drawbacks. I was a rebel. By the time I was mid-teen and in university, nobody could tell me what to do, right? Because I was pretty much left to my own devices in a whole lot of ways. In spite of being raised by a strict woman who would flog the living daylights out of me when I stepped out of line, in a whole lot of ways, I was missing something. So I grew up a rebel. By the time I was in school, I was all over the place. In my third year, I met a professor who eventually became my counselor, if you like, and my academic sponsor. But this was in third year in school. I was practically done with uni. But my interaction with that man in 1.5 years turned my life in a different direction. And I became a totally different person from the younger person that I was growing up. And I had a similar experience again in my career, right? I was a banker for many years. And the third or the fourth and the last bank that I worked with, which is where I spent the longest time of my career, is where I like to tell people that my career actually started when I came here, in spite of having worked in 3 different organizations before that. And I can draw it down to one specific event that happened. I was in a meeting with very senior people. It was an all hands meeting, actually. We were a much smaller bank then before it became such a big one. And conversations happened in that meeting that gave me a I had an eureka moment. And once again, I saw my life turn around in ways that are very significant. So when you ask me that, there's no one thing, because I have not been one person. I have been different people at different places. That's why I meant by it's such a difficult question. And I'm sure if we allowed everybody to talk, they would probably give you these kind of stories. Right? But so you can narrow it down to what's the most
extra minutes because you're not living here today. I'm giving everybody extra time.
we are here now. So I've said all of that to say that we are a sum total of the path that we've come from, right? And what you might find is everybody has these milestones, these markers, where, at least in my experience, I might be projecting, but I don't think not too terribly, where your life has basically be molded and shaped by the influences, whether it's human beings, whether it's institutions, whether it's
Situation.
circumstances, situations, yes, that have molded you and shaped you to becoming the person that you are today. And continuous learning is a thing. The evolution of who you are is a continuous thing until you decide that you don't want to be on this planet anymore. Because when you stop learning, you start dying. And so one of the things I try not to do is box myself into a this is who I am. Even as I speak today, I understand the fluidity in a lot of the ways that I think, in a lot of the views that I hold. I always consciously make room for that evolution to happen. But that's probably extending beyond the context of the question you asked. So
All right. Let me go, and then
I,
after
I,
that,
I just wonder, is there anybody who can say that, let's say the one of the things that has shaped their life is money? Like,
Yes.
let me wait, wait.
Let me share.
I didn't park that for a second. Let me
it's
finish.
not a
Let me.
yes or no question. You answer it and explain.
I didn't park. I didn't park
Is
that
it
for a
yes?
okay,
second.
okay, okay.
Let's park that for a second. Let me give you guys
I
mine,
like
and
that
then
question.
the next segment of question is money. But let me just say, mine is very short. It's very short and simple. I understand what Justin was saying because I was raised by a single mom as well, and I have different life experiences. But there's one thing I choose to talk about, and I only started talking about within the last year, was my illness of cancer. Now, oh, I'm not trying to be sympathetic or anything, but one thing happened during the whole process that really, really changed me, that changed my outlook on life and the way I am now. So there's this thing they had to do to try to find out what was really wrong with me. They had to do a biopsy. So there's a scar under my neck. So, they did the surgery. I went in, they took
Mhm.
out the mass, they went and go test it, whatever. But what changed my life was in the recovery room. So I was there. Obviously, my throat hurt. I could barely talk and everything. My brother rushed in to come see, if I was okay and everything. But the lady next to me just got her leg amputated, and she was in the level of pain that person was on another level that I never witnessed in my that I hope never to witness in my life. And in my mind, I was like, neck, because they scratched me my neck. I'm shouting. I beg. The person next to me, I can clearly see the position they're in. So if I feel like all the bad things that happen to me, I have to go to chemotherapy and all those things, and you're looking at other people and what they're going through, there's a good chance that they're going through far worse than you are. So the way from then on, because this happened 13 years ago, and from then on to now, the way and everybody can attest, even to my life work, even to the things I've done, even to living corporate America, to deciding to start an education technology startup to help people. I just see life as face value. I don't read too much meaning into things because it can end like this. And mine almost ended because I was in the hospital critically ill for a while till then I did chemotherapy and I got better. But it could end like this. I lost my ability to walk. I had to learn how to walk again. So my whole thing about life is and the way I live my life is because of that chapter that happened to me. So everything to me I feel can end just like that. So and that's why even in gender conversations, I'm a very face value kind of person. I like also have conversations based on what exactly we are talking about, that thing that we're talking about, because I just feel like that's how life goes. Put everything in front of you, and it can end just like that. So that's my own part of the story of how what has shaped my life.
That's
Are we
interesting.
ready to move on?
I can add to something. I think
Okay, go ahead. Go add if you want to add. Add if you want.
yeah, I think it's interesting because we to hear that everyone, like, I felt like I didn't do a little bit of justice because I was like coy. But one thing Justin said is, I guess maybe I'm still in that place where I'm still evolving what I reveal because that kind of thing. But there's something that Justin said about he met a specific professor, right? And growing up, I in some ways I feel like I grew up with a single parent. In some ways I feel like I didn't. I never lived with my mother, right? But I lived with my dad and his wife. But my dad was like out there making bread. You get what I mean? And I can relate to Justin's story in the sense that, you know, I really struggled academically. I really struggled. Like, like, guy, I didn't tell you, get the time where I
That's
won't go
crazy because you're probably one of the smartest people I know.
I won't go peace. They go call my sister. My sister go whisper house enter my ear. I was like, I was forget this phone there. There was a time when their booking was concentrated. It was high level. Like, God, my booking a capital A. You know, and they tell you,
Sanyo, they will they will ban you from coming home. Oh, man, no day.
I'm telling you because like you know, you be small picky, you're a child, like nobody sits you down and tells you, oh, this what's going on in the family. It's just life went on. You know, I was recently talking about with my friends about how I just remember my mom dressing us up. We go to the airport, we go to our house in Lagos, life went on. That's the thing. So talking I hear you about talk about that professor. I had a lesson teacher because there was one time I was struggling at math. I think it was like primary one, and they had to call my parents and like, look, this Pekin is flunking and he's going to
This one don't know book. Oh.
Exactly. He doesn't know anything. And that kind of thing. And then it was that guy, Mr. Sylvanus Okorebo, Edo man, I'll never forget. And he started calling me professor. He said, your brain works like a computer. You just need to know how to tune it. I've never seen someone smile. So I thought this guy was just chatting bollocks. Like, he's just trying to make me feel good about my Oludu-ness. But he was genuinely serious. And then before you know it, I started buying into this guy idea that, you know what, this 2 times 1 2, I have to do a more, like, you know, I like this. And then I went from one of the worst students to the 3rd best student overall in a year. You know, and I was speaking to my sister recently about it. She was like, what made her become smart was I'm like very annoying. And just if you have not seen my Twitter, you probably like I'm a bit of a dick.
Everybody has blocked you. Finished. Everybody has blocked you.
Exactly. Everybody has blocked you. It's one out of 3 people I can see. You know, I'm a self-proclaimed.
There's only 6 of us that you can see, right? Just 6 of us.
I'm a self-proclaimed asshole, and I'm proud of that. But what my sister said, it was like, because I was very annoying, like, you cannot do this. I said, come, let me show you, let me do that. The thing made her, you know, want to be better. So very interesting, Justin. I really related to that point. But coming back to Bola's point, I mean, well, sum total all these things, and it's interesting that, you know, different things happen in our lives and they take us here and left, and we should always leave room for growth. Very, very important. Yeah.
Sure.
Anybody wants to add to that, or let's now talk about
Irene's $1 million question.
I did want to talk about how money. I did want to talk about how money changes.
Yeah.
Since you are you go first. Yeah, the one that brought it up.
So, you know, I grew up in a house where everybody in my family was either in education or oil and gas. So, and you know, I already saw Nigerian government do my mother shaggy. So I said to myself, if it was the very last thing in the world that I would do, I would never be a teacher in this life. So that was cancelled. And so when I finished school and I started at some ad hoc job in an oil and gas company, I kept wondering to myself, oh my God, when am I going to start making this money? When am I going to ever see, you know, when am I ever going to make my first #1,000,000? You know, my salary was 15,000 naira a month. And
with
you know,
a university degree.
I hadn't gone for NYSC yet, but you know, they said you come in as a casual staff, you do as 15K, and then they started assigning roles. I asked my boss, please, where can I earn more money in this company? They said, it's very hard work. You go to thermal disruption unit in there. You will wake up at 6:30, you do 7 to 7. I said, okay, now what I can do? How much is the money? They say 1K. They say, okay, we'll do it. I'm telling you, they say girls don't do it. There's only one girl in that plant. She's the only one who has survived. And you know, she doesn't look like a girl. She's very, I don't know, tomboyish and all of that. And you really did. You be a job. I said, okay, I don't bomb me when I no do it. I went and I did it for 3 years, by the way. Wow. But when it was time to move, you know, now I'd done my NYSC, you know, While still keeping that job, I did an NYS in Zamfara State. And I was kept my job in Port Harcourt. And yeah, I was coming home every 6 weeks. I told my boss in Port Harcourt that I was working on my redeployment, and they were eating my money. I didn't apply for one single redeployment. I did the whole the full thing. And then I'll tell my boss in Zamfara that I'm going for job interview in Port Harcourt. I know there's no more. So, but one of the things is I was really, really desperate. I was desperate to make my own money because, one of the kind of feedback I used to get when I was as a kid was, when you make your own money, you make these kind of decisions, or get up and go and wash those plates. You think that there's any slave. So I used to tell my father, watch me. I make enough money, and my goal is to make so much money I will never have to wash a dish in my life. By the way, I've not
I
reached
used to
there
say
yet.
that too.
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know.
hire a chef. I'm gonna hire a cleaner.
Yeah, but then, to make my really long story shorter, I had an opportunity to move to Enugu to start a different job in a different industry. So I was going from oil and gas to pharmaceuticals, and not just pharmaceuticals, but pharmaceutical sales. The one thing that I always had looked down on, the one thing, everybody finds the salesman very annoying. And then when you think about sales, you think about is these guys who sell insurance who really need the insurance more than you do. Um, so I was I was scared. To worsen matters, I was going to take a pay cut. In fact, I remember my first job interview. The national sales manager said, "It's like you will go." When I told him that the salary I was expecting was 200K, so he's like, "You will go back to oil and gas." And then they offered me 50K as a basic salary, and told me that I would get a float, an expense account, which was paid to me, by the way, in product, and a
Are you
travel
kidding
expense
me?
money was paid to me in
Not even in
product. Product
cash.
I had never sold one day in my life. That 50K didn't come as planned, by the way. So it came 3 months. I resumed in October. My first salary was in December. But by December, hey, by December was very dirty. Hey,
You know somebody.
I unlocked the power of sales. Let me tell you, I said to myself, when I left oil and gas, I'd not quit my job initially. I went and started 1 month in Enugu. But, I wanted to just try it out. But when I got there, I realized, if you're a great salesperson, you would never look for a job a day in your life. And that's how I turned. For me, I'm going to do this. By December, I hadn't been paid the salary, but I was 1 million richer. My first million. It was sweet. I won't lie. I said, this job, I die here. When they say, the salary is for saying, no, that's surviving by the grace of God, While we continue, and then, by the time you now move, upwards, you also see that, hey, that bonus is nice. But for me, that was really it, because I went from worried about, oh my God, how am I going to move from, counting 15K to 45K salaries to, oh wow, I know what it feels like, to own ₦1 million. And it was a very pivotal moment for me.
I love money stories. Money. Let's see, yeah. Money is not everything, but it's most things. It's most things.
So, I mean, when you ask us that question about money,
Bola's talking, but his mic is off.
Yeah.
but your mic is off. We can see your lips moving.
Sorry, I didn't. My show producer training, I didn't complete it.
You didn't finish your class.
I didn't
So what
finish
were
my
you saying?
class. What I wanted to say just real quick about money is, because of my life experience, I see things more of on a I see wealth. I don't see money. I don't see cash. Anything I do that I see now is in terms of how I can leave a legacy for my children. Even I started thinking about even if I had kids. So I don't. So I'm not a long term person. when company now. I kind of see how putting certain things or putting structures in place will help people coming behind you. So I don't see money as a transaction. I see it as an infrastructure. So I'm always a long-term kind of person with money. That's the only thing I have to say about money.
That's interesting, Bola. I think I like the long term part, the what you talked about, and I like Irene's story because I think when you talked about money, me, I was already excited because me, I like money. Like I like money. Oh. I like no, like I will not even money. I like money because it's like I think when I was much younger, and I guess at a time in my life where I didn't think I was anything because no one in the world. One thing I used to just look at when I watch TV, I'll be like, I'm going to be rich. I don't know how I'm going to do it, too, but I'll be rich because I know that if I'm rich, all this suffer, I don't really suffer out. Like that was like for me from a young age. Like, look, I want to have so I can give, and some days I sit down and I ask myself, every day I think we focus so far like where we haven't gotten to in life, we forget how far we've come. And I look back and I just like, yo, I was just that small kid from Festac Town. And that was the hashtag I always used to use on Twitter, like small boy from Festac, like if you told me like at this time in my life that I would have some of the things I have now, like I'll be like, nah, man, like, it wouldn't happen. Like, a few things. But also on the flip side, there's also what money made possible for me. Yes, I grew up without, my parents were divorced, but I'm not gonna lie, my papa didn't get money. We were upper middle class. I'm not even like shy about it. I went to private school and everything, and those things they facilitated a lot of things. The people you meet, the experiences, and
Money gives you options.
exactly. It's as much as my dad was the type of person that he would tell you to your face that this money is my own, it's not your own. He's like, my dad was that rich guy that his children were still on the streets and he knew it. Like we did streets, but then we look like, but your papa get money. We're like, you don't understand what's going on. That was me. I was out there on the street trying to get one or two things, but because my dad had that mindset, like, look, you've got to do this thing yourself and that kind of thing. And that's kind of money is very, I think it gives you options. Like the same way Anya talks about, like she's pro, I guess, woman, right? I call myself like pro lad because I like to help lads because I feel like today there's a hotline where a lot of girls them can call and say, hey, I'm going through this. But a lot of young men today are lost. They don't know what to call, like who to call. They just need someone to tell them they can do this thing. And like, I guess starting off with like literally how they can get there, I can be on their purpose and make a little bit of this to see that as like a vehicle to get to where they can be in life is it's also important. So
sorry to interrupt you, but it was funny. I was on the way in a whole nother country minding my own business in Portugal. And somehow I run into this guy and, he was like telling me, I had to do a presentation at, a conference, and he came up and he was talking to me about the presentation, and how much he admires. I said, where do you live? He says, I live in London. I said, oh, you live in London. I said, you haven't tapped into the Nigerian community in London. He's like, well, there's one guy that I really admire, but, I like everything about what he's doing. This is mad random, like out of nowhere. I said, well, what is his name? And all of a sudden, look, lo and behold, he's talking about this guy right here in front of me in this camera. So, because he said he's always wanted to do all these things that he's been doing, and he sees he's traveling, he's doing this and all the stuff that this wonderful guy is doing. So next thing you know, I said, well, let me connect you so the two of you can talk, so he can be your mentor. So this is in response to where you said, you want to mentor lads, because they have these questions. It's true. You do have segments of people that need guidance and need mentorship, as Mary put it. And it was just irony that I run into this person of all people that knows someone I know that he admired. So I think it doesn't matter, where you are in the spectrum. If you recognize that there's a need, you fit yourself into that need to make things happen because your experiences is what shaped you. And, like Justin said, it's forever changing you. So if you're able to help someone else, just to get to a certain stage in life, hey, by all means, even with all this money he loves to have, don't get me wrong, I love money too. Money is great for conveniences. people picking up your laundry, people cleaning your house. You know, hey.
I have been. I mean,
I have a
I'm here.
question for everyone.
Can I just say something?
Let Mary go, and then you ask your question.
So I mean, I'm here in New York, and I've been doing a lot of thinking, as you know, like COVID-19. Everyone's working from home. We're home a lot, and and to answer sort of like Irene's question about money, I think to even take it a step further, one of the questions that I actually wrote down in my journal is, what do I need to do to ensure that I live a healthy and productive life? And I think money is one of those things. And money ties into career and having a job and having set of skills that really sets you apart. Because you cannot live a healthy and productive life if you don't have money. If you don't have money, you can't make transactions on very simple things like paying your rent, buying your food, and all of that. And then let me get controversial. How people get money also matters. Some people advocate for finding a sugar daddy and finding to pick up your bills. However you get.
Sorry, I'm dancing.
So I think instead of the question about money, I think the question should be, what do I need to do to deliver a healthy and productive life? In my journal, I put, healthy communication is one of them. Knowing and learning how to communicate with people properly, having a job, career, and a skill to ensure that you can make money so you're able to make certain transactions. Mentoring is also very important, whether you're the mentor or you're the mentee. It's one of the ways to give back. So whatever is on that list is very important. But when I look at the list, for me, like money is so important, because if you don't have cash, whether it's liquid cash or whether it's a bunch of assets, you can't really live a healthy and productive life because you can't make transactions on certain things. So is money important? Yes. How you get the money, however you get it, hey, that's your choice and that's up to you.
By the way, Annie, thank you, because I'll never forget that you were helping me with woman issues that day. I'll never forget. So let's
Mary, thank you very much for that point.
Quick question, bro. We have 5 minutes left, so let's move a little fast. 5 minutes left to wrap up. So, Irene,
you guys didn't realize we've been here for 2 hours, right?
I actually didn't. So I did have a question on, just to bring us back to the subject of why are we this way, and it really is how men.
I'm not hearing that.
Relate. How can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm asking,
yes,
how do men, women, and everybody in the spectrum in between relate to money? And is it the same? Are we wired the same? Are we wired to react the same towards money? And then the second thing is, to Mary's point, on what do I need to be healthy and productive, live a healthy and productive life.
Justin, you can't hear.
I feel that having a money. Can you hear?
I can hear her.
Oh, fantastic! I feel like having a money metric is very important because and I'll take it.
Yeah, Justin can hear.
I want to link it to my sales background, my sales and marketing background, because you need a tangible. You need something that you can see, feel, count. You need something that is. You need a goal that is really, really specific. If you say, I want to be happier, and all of that, if you don't say things like, this is what I want my blood sugar to look like, my weight to look like, my blood pressure to look like, it's still a little vague. So while yes, money is a means to that healthy and productive life, it's good to always have something that is a measurable target when you're referring to money. Otherwise, you still never be fulfilled, because healthier and happier is a very relative term.
So real quick, Justin did not answer the money question.
Why are you like this?
I knew you were going to be like, I'm wicked, but you didn't answer it. I know that is by design.
Okay. Before you Go out me in front of the whole world. Let me
Quiet. I'm done. I didn't say anything. I just answer that question.
If you are looking to adopt son, my daddy will not mind.
I need to be adopted myself. So money gives me anxiety. Yeah. Let me explain. So, ladies, you know how that pressure, and this is not in any way trivializing, but it's very real for me from a male perspective. When I hear, and this is the way that I find a comparator when I hear women talk about the example I'm about to give. When you say it's pressure when people keep asking you about when are you going to get married? Yeah, why are you still single? That pressure. For me, the corollary to that pressure in my own experience is money. And it's very real. This is one of the ways that one could argue that patriarchy affects men as well, right? You're socialized, bringing this all back to the context of the conversation. You're socialized in this way that there is an expectation where, as a man, the way to prove your worth to the world, the way to express value to the world is in the substance of the things that you can own and control, which you can reduce to money, right? It's a lot more complicated than that, but for the purpose of this conversation, I'll just reduce it to money, right? So I'm saying that carefully. So it's not when the Twitterverse and the universe hears it, it's not taken out of context. So it's a lot more nuanced than money, but for the purpose of the conversation, I'll just use money as a proxy for all those things. So where, for instance, and I'm being very intentional in my own parenting because of this, because I catch myself doing it. I love my 2 kids. They're amazing. But you know what? I love my daughter just because. And I show her that love just because. Her brother, they're probably hearing me from their upstairs room. Her brother, however, I find that I have to consciously make an effort to relate with him in the same emotive way that I naturally express with his sister, without holding him up to this be a man kind of thing, right? So my thesis to it being, it appears that we were socialized in such a way that, hey, as a man, you have to prove your worth. As a woman, you are intrinsically valuable. And forgive me if I trespass in that understanding, but this is my experience, right? So we show that affection. We show a woman is valuable because she's a woman. A man has to prove his worth by doing certain things. And that is the sense in which I say money gives me anxiety. So we live in a world where we advocate equality, where we advocate 2-income homes. It's pragmatic for you not to have a single income. The world is becoming more expensive. But there's this underlying notion that, dude, it's still on you from the financial perspective. And I understand that this may not be the experience across geographies. So I'm speaking strictly as a Nigerian living in Nigeria at this moment in time, right? In this context, there's still this underlying notion that it's on you. So I have aspirations for the family. I have aspirations for the kids. Yeah, we hope people will be brilliant and they'll get scholarships. But you know, if you want them to go to the Ivy League school, go and hustle this money, Baba. Nobody is going to.
Justin, can I jump on that point?
Justin, can I just say something really quickly?
Come for you.
I'm done actually.
Justin, Justin must have never met those men. I love like how you're probably a good man and you're saying, you know, the responsibilities on me, but you've never met those men who just wake up one day and be like, I am out of here. Keep your kids. Keep
They
your
exist.
bills, and they just leave.
But they are not the definitive standard of masculinity. It's just saying.
Well, that's true. That's true. I'm not going with the not all men. I don't do the not all men. But those are important experiences. Or some people who just wake up and say, I'm not working today and there's nothing you're going to do. Do what you have to do. That's on you. Those are your kids.
Mary,
if you don't work,
and that is
so
true. That is true.
Yeah. So I'm encouraging you. Actually, I'm actually encouraging you that you don't give up. Yes, you feel the anxiety, but I don't want to get too off point. But I also feel like if people feel a lot of pressure, oh God, don't stab me or anything. But maybe people should not have kids. Like enjoy yourself, enjoy your life, and I know we're supposed to end at 5, so so maybe people shouldn't feel pressure to have kids. But
when everyone's
encouraging you, Justin, as well. That thank you for not giving up. But there are also so many people who either abandon or who don't care that they have this responsibility.
I can jump on that point. Just quickly before we end, because what Justin said is you put it brilliantly. Look, these brains that we have, they haven't changed for 100,000 years. The game, in terms of intergender dynamics, is set by women at the end of the day. Women, we display the same way cow will come and like fight with the other cow just to get the prettiest looking cow. It's the same thing with human beings. Women exist. Men we have to display. We have to come and either fight or again. It all comes down to that. And fundamentally, that's not going to change because that's the game. I always say the game is the game. Don't lower the hoop, learn to dunk higher. It's simple.
Don't shift the goalpost.
Exactly. Don't lower the hoop, just dunk higher. So the game is the game. And what you said is like that is true. As a man, if you haven't got, I always say 3 things make you valuable to women: look, status, affluence. All right. And if you haven't got a combination of those things, all right, like that kind of thing. If you don't have, like,
Solly is like a philosopher. Right?
But you would agree though that that's changing because a lot of the reality is let's look at it. I know Annie's like, let's end this, but I just want to say something really quickly. Yeah. The reality is that there are more men than women, for example, in Nigeria, right? But then there are more unemployed and jobless men in Nigeria, right? Equally. But then you have a lot of pressure on women to get married.
The woman from madam from?
So a lot of women are marrying unemployed and jobless men. So whether you have affluent, social status, or whatever it is you're referring to, women are still marrying them regardless.
This is interesting.
Okay.
No. We're in that territory now.
Let's go there.
It's important I make this point.
Mr. Showrunner, are you giving us another 30 minutes? You did it during
5 minutes. It's important I make this point. I hear what Mary is saying. Again, it comes out to the whole thing where it's such a like one.
Earphone.
Right? Because throughout the history of time, men have been marrying downwards. I'm using the word downwards. The average guy is marrying a lady that hasn't got no money as much as money as he has, but we don't look at it as a thing. So I'm not trying to claim for equality. I'm saying that's just the game. And guess what? Women set the game. They say, look, if you want this, you got to bring this. That's the game. And I don't hate the game. I'm a guy. I understood earlier that if that's the game, I'm going to go to school. I'm not going to be, Funke is telling me she doesn't want to like me now because I don't have money. But Funke, see me now. Guys,
sorry, yeah, you're a bad boy at heart, man.
Because let's be real. Every one of us, me, you, Bola, Justin, we've had that thing in life where we've seen a girl with like every man has been through it, and you like speak your game, on point game. But there's a way to look at you that you reevaluate your life choices.
True get size.
You go home. You're not the problem. You just be like, oh man, we need to find another day.
It's not just me.
I imagine you talk to yourself in the mirror a lot. You look like someone that does
It's
that.
just not courting women alone, though. It's not just courting women alone. It's even like I won't like when I was in secondary school, I was a bright student, but I wasn't the best student because I played a lot and everything. And then probably even people wouldn't believe I was a U.S. citizen. Anytime I said it in class, they would just laugh at me. And then now, I'm not saying that I've arrived now, but some things I've worked well for me.
Good. Mama, look at we made it.
Calm down. Let me make my point. When people see me now, at least even if I don't have money, I have network. I have small influence.
Relax.
People they'll be like, this guy. And I can tell like their reaction when they see me. There's nothing there's nothing different, right? That's the same conversation we're going to have. So I mean, I totally get what money, but it's just not a money thing for me too. Like a lot of things that can push you up in status. It's not just money. I I like money. Don't get me wrong, but when you when you see okay when you have
Yeah,
access to people that have money,
as a guy, Bola, sorry, let me even reframe this thing. As a guy, you like it or you don't like it.
you have to have it.
It's
You need it.
inconsequential. You need it, so your like now for your pocket.
Try get the
You have to
money
have it.
because
It's the only way to live a healthy, productive life. Whether you're male or you're female, it does not matter. You need to be able to make certain transactions. You have to
True
pay your
that.
rent. You have to buy food. You have to pay bills. Money gives you freedom. You can't go on vacation if you don't have money. Like,
We agree.
I mean, it's
so
kind of funny.
can I point out something
We are
that
not
even
arguing against money
for
though. It's not a anti-money
for men and
argument.
women.
Yeah.
Let me point out something that evens the scale for men and women. You see, growing up, my brother really did, was rascally and played a lot and all of that. And they would come and tell him, see, listen, these girls you're following to play, they will marry. Somebody else will take their responsibility. You are the one that somebody is depending on to come and save them and take their responsibility. So, while that was, the prevailing narrative, something else happened as a lot of girls grew into puberty and then womanhood, they also saw that a lot of women who took that route of security in a man's blanket ended up in the cold.
Mm,
So everybody sat up. Money became important to
for
everybody.
everybody.
So from when you see people go from a certain level of comfort to near squalor just because of a change in their relationship status, then you start have start to ask yourself real questions and say, I need something that's what money is for me. By the way, money is security for me. So for me, it's also not like Mary said, not really per se about the specific amount, but it is what guarantees me survival without depending on another person by virtue of what we've seen in the society. And I think that that's what evens it out for men and women, because nowadays you don't see women who say things like, oh, I'm not going to do anything with myself, I'm just going to make myself pretty and one man is going to save me, because they now know that this
Have you been on
that guy.
Instagram,
Irene,
Irene?
calm down.
Irene, are you on Instagram?
Let me no no no
Irene,
no no no
calm
no no
down.
no.
Irene, Irene, there's a whole industry.
Let me no 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 no. Let me explain that.
money
A
is
lot
like
of
this.
a
Let me
lot
say,
of a lot of
Listen,
a lot of a lot of that Instagram industry
listen.
is
I was
really a
following.
fundraising campaign to do
Right,
other things.
right.
Irene, wait.
They are, yes, they are looking for money. They are looking for money, but they are looking for money to do.
I was on your
No,
trail.
yeah.
I was
Consider
on
it. No. Consider
Order,
it this way. They are
order,
raising capital.
order.
Irene, sit
I
down.
was with you. I was with
Play.
you until you said that.
They are raising
Irene, you
capital.
just broke the table. Order. Everybody off your mic. We have to reset.
Yes.
Wait. Let Annie
Bola,
go,
back
please.
to you. So
Yeah,
that we
I
go
don't
Annie,
one by
care. I
one.
don't care what anyone says. There are some people that will just sit down anyhow. They're making their own money, but they'll wait for the next one to come and bring them all their money, without even thinking about the fact that, hey, you're making money too. Why does this guy have to come and, bring you all their money? And it happens. It happens across the board. I don't care whoever you are.
yeah.
I think that money is important to everyone. How they choose to interact with it, it's a whole different story. So, and for me, I've seen people that say if he doesn't have this, and this, it's not going to work, you know, and vice versa. I've seen guys that are like, listen, I did all this and it's about to blow up. Ain't no way I'm just gonna take this woman who's not doing this, and this. So it goes both ways. It just depends on whom you're dealing with, because I don't. You're right. People may not sit down and say, I'm just going to do my own. Yes, but then now you're putting expectations on the person that comes along. So, what is your expectation and what's your reality and what are you bringing to the table at the end of the day?
All right. We have to close. but I'll give everybody 1 minute. I'll give everyone 1 minute to close, and then me and Justin will wrap it up. So, but thank you so much to everyone that on the panel, and to everyone that tuned in. This has been really, really good and very enlightening. I don't know, for some reason before every show, I'm a little skeptical about, or I have this anxiety about how will it go, but then the conversation usually goes way better than I thought, and this was no
And now you
different.
feel like we should continue. Or we should
Yeah,
have
I've
another
been the
part.
one. I've been the one. I've been the one, guys.
You're having anxiety about too much money. Your own too.
I've
That's
been
what
trying
anxiety
to
is.
I've been trying to get us to come to a conclusion. But then Irene always has one joker to pull out and then triggers everybody.
Tell
and
me,
then
Joker.
everybody and then everybody wants to fight. Irene, let me just tell you, this thing, if the re-airs on Twitter, yeah, it's soup.
You just need to add Irene as a third co-host.
Irene, yeah, it's soup. Hot soup. Anyways, thank you so much, guys. So 1 minute for everyone to wrap up. Irene, you want to get us going?
Okay.
Just,
So my 2 cents in 1 minute is this: between both genders, it's clear that we're different. It's clear that our socialization is different. It's clear that our objectives are different, and our goals are different. But what is common between us is survival, and I think that we need to always have that at the back of our minds as we interact. But more importantly, is that this race to uniformity that we see in opinion, that we see that is prevailing in the space, also does not give room for us to express our individualities, both as genders and as people, and in ourselves. And it's one of those things that we need to be able to understand. If women want a much more equitable interaction with men, then they must be willing to understand men. There's no other way. If men want a much more equitable interaction with women, they must be willing to listen to women. So it's not, "Oh, please, if I disagree with a misogynist, or you don't want to support women and all of that, or you don't want to on the male end, you don't want to take accountability." By the way, I've swung between both ends in the last 2 days. So I've gone from I've gone from, "Guys, please don't hit women because you can kill somebody and you will go to jail for nothing, just because you were in a raid." And it's like, "Oh my God, she's a misandrist. She doesn't like men. How about you talk to women? You don't want to see too. Okay, maybe this woman shouldn't have deceived her husband." And like, one girl actually told me, "Hey, this men that every time you're supporting men, every time men agree with
They won't
you,
pick you.
something is, they won't pick you, exactly, something is wrong." you know so
all right.
when
1
we
minute for
don't have
Irene.
that,
1 minute.
can we interact differently? So yeah, that really is my 2 cents. Let's be a lot more
Can we
willing to
interact
listen to the
differently?
other side. Let's be a lot more willing to look at the big picture. I hope I've been able to convince and not confuse you.
With these plenty points of yours.
All right, Sonny.
2 points of mine.
Sonny, 1 minute. I'm counting though.
Yeah, I think it's been a wonderful conversation. I think first of all, we've had a conversation mostly about like gender differences, and we haven't actually like disagreed with each other. No one has tried to kill the other person yet. And I think most of the time, this is where most people live in, is the center. But again, the Dunning-Kruger effect means that places like Twitter would always amplify the
extremist voice.
the incels and the feminazis. I call them the incels and the feminazis. That makes everybody feel
Justin
like
has a plan for them. Justin is going to start charging $100 a month to it. If you want to be in a close group.
you'd be surprised. You'd be very surprised. But I think it's also really interesting to hear all your takes. I think, me personally, I think as I'm probably the youngest person on this panel, right? So, and I feel like we've not done a good job, because I always tell people I'm my age going on 35, we've not done a good job of telling young men and women today, we're living in this very postmodernist vibe. Everybody is the same and everything. It will end in tears because, and the funny thing is, to end in tears when you're like 42, you're not living with Tom and Jerry cards. You know, like it's end in tears for all those boys too. It's for both men and women. It's to end in tears, and then you see them writing blog posts. How I wish I did not listen to this. It's to end in tears. So I feel like we can do a better job being honest about.
So this is making some strong points because I have the same sentiments that all these things. I'm with you.
Exactly. People be saying, no, you will see everybody strong in chest. No, my man must have this. The girl not even get a pep, but she be fine. Are you that you cannot form two sentences? Or one
Sorry, Zeno.
You see guys saying he wants to marry Dangote's daughter and he doesn't even have one yet. You know, you have to start telling young people the truth. You have to start telling them the truth to prepare them.
All right. Guys, who's next? Please wrap up because we need to get out. So 1 minute or less, please, quickly.
All right, I'm gonna jump in. I'm still all about women having their own stash only because once again, not your own, in terms of like whatever. I'm talking about secret stash. There should always be a rainy day money is what we call it. An account where you don't touch. So I'm all about that. Yes, you can throw that money everywhere. And Mr. I need to know where the money's at. So good luck, because you're going to find that a lot of women will always keep some type of secret stash just because somebody in their family told them to do it. So, but in terms of the gender differences, I think that it was great that we all had, our different perspectives and being able to talk about our backgrounds in order to reflect, how we landed where we landed. And I think it was good to see all the different perspectives of how people were and the expectations and, how we are now. And so, thank you for a good conversation. I enjoyed myself. And that's my wrap
Thank
up.
you for coming on.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. Yeah, it's been such a great conversation, and Bola, thank you so much for inviting me to this. Ani and Irene and Justin and Sunny, it's been really fun. Yeah, I learned so much. I actually don't think I wouldn't refer, and to point to Sunny's point, I wouldn't refer anyone as a feminazi. I think everyone's really affected by their life experiences and whatever their trauma is. If you really sit down with someone who you consider a feminazi, have a lot of traumatic experiences, sometimes with men, sometimes with, their fathers, whatever it is. So did someone just spit out their drink? So yeah, I mean, in terms of are men and women different, I think in an ideal world, we would like for there to be like this fairness and everything to be different, to be the same. But obviously there are differences that are there. Biological differences, the way people are socialized, whatever it is. But I think, this could be an ongoing conversation. I think it's a very important one. And, I had so much fun.
Thank you. Oh, God, Justin. So thanks to all our guests. We really appreciate you. Thanks for coming. Hopefully you'll answer our call again when we need you for other topics. Thank you so much. Justin. Close us out so we can head out.
Why
My
are you
children are
like
already
this?
fighting.
Why are you like this? We're in front of the whole world, though.
My God. What do you mean?
I don't understand.
I'm not asking for money. Don't worry. No need for
it's the
anxiety.
boss. People should not mind you. It's just heightening my anxiety. Anyway, so what are my final or summarizing thoughts? They're all over the place because we've touched on so many important things, and I'm already reflecting. So I'm also looking at the comments on the timeline, and people are quite keen on that conversation we started with, which is the issue of the 10%, 40%. So let me start with stating what my thoughts on that are. Number one, it is reasonable for a woman in today's world to have a secret stash, right? To have a reserve of money. Let me do it with the word secret. To have a reserve of money. There is every reason for you to want to do that. There is, however, ways to do that without undermining the trust in your relationship, right? Yes. Which is what we saw, which is what I saw in this particular example that trended, right? She had a good cause, but the way she went about it just threw a spanner in the works. And that speaks to this socialization, how we are not taught about how this adulting thing works. But we are told about all the negative things to expect in marriage. And I mean, talking about marriage these days is almost like talking about war. If you were to follow the popular voices and trend, it's almost like you're going, if you're talking about marital relationships of any, or even
Hunger Games.
intergender relationships, is almost like, yes, it's an active crime scene. So everybody that is on the scene is a suspect until proven otherwise. And I think that's negative socialization, and that's something people need to begin to exercise their own agency to learn. There are resources out there, there are books, there's the internet. In fact, let me give more than one instance. There's the internet for you to, the same internet that you're using to radicalize yourself on both sides. We need to become a bit more centered. We need to become a bit more balanced in our views. We need to allow people express themselves. Labeling, cancel culture, and I think these are things that we'll eventually talk about on Serious Banter. All these things are contributing to a very toxic, ongoing conversation between genders, and I just think all of that needs to stop. Otherwise, yeah, and dishonesty, exactly. Otherwise, like Sani said, it will end in tears for a lot of people. So, Oga Boss, back to you, sir.
All right. Thank you so much. This has been a very engaging conversation. Thanks. To be out on the podcast fairly soon. So we're about to sign off, but thanks again. Catch us again next week. Next week's show is probably going to be maybe one of our biggest shows to date, because we are talking beyond music, and I think we have LD, Dr. Seed, Emanira, and Foza. Foza is I think Timaya and Tenny's lawyer. So we'll have a good conversation and have fun next week. And the collective is also welcome to join us. But thanks again. This was a good conversation. My own takeaway is, let's stop shifting the goalposts. Whatever it is we are discussing, let's talk about the face value.
Stay in one place. Let the thunder fire you if it needs to fire you.
Yeah, let's stop the shalaye. Because me, Justin has said I should have more patience and I should start listening a little bit more and having more conversation. But once the conversation is veering off what we are talking about, I'm out.
Well,
but thank you guys so much. Till we meet again.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.
All right.
Alaji Sani.